Whoops. Yeah, we're live. Whoops, my phone thought I talked to it. It isn't. Hold on a second. Ah, that was surprising.
Your phone's talking to you?
Yeah, I said, "Do you see me?" And then my phone is answering. This is about you, not me. It's the Siri thing. I didn't realize I pushed the button. Hold on a second. Well, no, stop it.
Okay, Siri, you can stop working now.
Yeah, I don't know how I even turn it off. No, okay, well, hi.
So nice to meet you.
Lovely to meet you. So you've been in the Next Edge for a little while, or?
Yeah, a little while, maybe it's in the months, definitely. Last year, I helped to organize an event called Living the New Economy here in Vancouver with Suresh Fernando, actually, who's been
Yes.
popping up on Threads, and I met Caroline Smalley there as well. And
Okay.
tons of, I mean, there's so many people that are just on fire and developing amazing things. So I'm just really wanting to be in service and in support of that, and bring people together to have conversations about what we're working on. So I
Yes.
was
Well,
super
me
stoked to see your post.
me too. So okay, so let's talk about that because me too. I mean, I have tons of friends in the Next Edge, and Next Edge is sort of a new incarnation of people I've been networking with for a long time in various ways. It's sort of a new hope in a certain way.
Yes.
And I'm very into conversations that go somewhere. Um, well, they don't have to go somewhere. I'm also into conversations without any agenda whatsoever. They're my favorite conversations, but I like the idea of sharing or creating a space where we are all having a conversation together, or where the most intriguing conversations can show up and be inspiring to other people. So what can we do with it? So what you're doing so far, I mean, you're having conversations with people and recording them and leaving them around, kind of thing.
Well, the perspective that I come from is that we need to own our own voice. So we
Hmm.
need to have agency over what happens to our voice and image. And in that way, it allows us to be able to have the conversations we want to have, rather than be pulled into someone else's story.
Hmm.
Um, and so that's partly why I've started with just having conversations with people one on one, so that we can first reflect on what we're saying
Hmm.
and come to a place of understanding together, and then choose together how and what we put out there, because we're telling a new story in new ways. And so for myself, what I'm inspired to do is tell a story on the record, so recording it, um, through people like you and I meeting and saying, what do we want to build?
Hmm.
What needs to be built? And have that as part of the conversation that's open, that is um, transparent, and that people can also make their own, have their own conversations that are also for the record and feeding into a collective conversation that we desperately need to have at this point.
Yes. So, yes. So what's interesting for me is in how to create some continuity
Mm-hmm.
in that, or some. I mean, there people I've been part of many interesting conversations, and some of them have been recorded and so forth. But it's maybe difficult to sort of string them together so that it feels like part of a bigger conversation, so to speak, with many threads to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that I don't necessarily know how to do, other than just to sort of create a stream or a feed somewhere, or a playlist or a channel of lots of conversations. Um,
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I'd like it to be something that's sort of always going on, that you can sort of just plug into it. It shouldn't take a lot of searching to sort of find it, although not everybody's interested in the same conversations, of course. So it's also, how do we deal with if they're like sort of too many? I mean, there are too many for everybody to listen in on all conversations, so there needs to be some way of navigating that, or finding the conversations you're into and so forth.
sort of, I guess where I was going with those sorts of things, because I mean, we can only do so much as single people. So for me, I know that there's so much creativity happening all over the planet, and so many people like yourself and the other next edgers who are out there doing amazing things, that there are systems that have been built. That's the sense I have, is that everything's been built. It just needs to be connected. And, you know, that's a really simple way. It's obviously not all built, but many, many things have been built.
Right.
And what's that?
Right. Yeah. 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 Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah. And so I think it's our job to make sense of it and to link ourselves together. For me, it's about, like, for example, right now we're having a conversation and we're sharing thoughts. So this is the basis of collaboration, is that we're sharing our thoughts. We are creating a media asset from this that can be given value, and not only value in numerical sense, but also value by sharing ideas in a new way that other people can do. And so I think it's processes and protocols that we need to develop and design together. Obviously, constraining lines of content to things that make sense together. So if we're going to be, you know, asking for a wide variety of people to create media together, then you really want to constrain what that question is, or what we're framing the conversation as, so that it is useful. And that's the experiment. I mean, that's where a lot of the experiment, I think, we need to just iterate, rapid iteration of what actually works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how do you imagine it will emerge? Like questions, for example, how is it framed? Like, for example, I mean, the thought emerged that we should do some shared media around the upcoming Montreal festival
Yeah.
thing. So do you think it's sufficiently framed by putting out some questions, and then people do conversations and media around that? Or is the way to share it something that needs to be sort of discovered along the way through ongoing conversations? Like, we don't really know yet what works.
Right.
So we shouldn't necessarily pretend that we do.
Yes, please. Yes, let's be learners and experimenters.
Right.
Yeah.
So the tricky part is maybe then how to get it going while we don't know what it is yet. I mean, I'm personally very comfortable with things I don't know what is yet. I enjoy that,
Mm-hmm.
but some people maybe don't. So like, for example, like here, I put out a call for some videos, and very few people thought that was a good idea. We had already talked about it, and we were in a small core group, and had decided that would be a good idea. But just because I suggest that doesn't make it happen. I mean,
No, it doesn't.
not at all. So there's a little bit of sort of inertia and critical mass needed. Nobody really knows what to do, and doing videos in the first place, not everybody's comfortable with that. And then what exactly are you supposed to do? How is it supposed to look? And I know very well that if enough examples were there, a few people put out some examples, and people got, okay, that makes sense,
Yes.
then it would
So,
work.
yeah, totally.
But at the same time, I don't know exactly what it should look like. So It doesn't necessarily make sense either to do an authoritative sort of, this is exactly what you need to do, this is the one question you need to answer, you have 1 minute, and this is how you do it. I
Yeah,
don't
that
know.
is going to turn people off.
Yeah,
Like it's already scary to do it. So
yeah. So it's a little tricky that it's both sort of evolving the process of it. I mean, the intention is some kind of media sharing, that we need something more higher bandwidth than talking with words in writing. I mean, we need to see each other and feel each other's vibe, kind of thing, and without overwhelming everybody with many hours of video. So the idea here was to do something light, but that's not necessarily the right format either. I mean, sometimes things don't come out before you've had a half-hour sort of exploration of things. I mean, it's
mhm.
a little too much to ask people to do a 1 minute video and share the essence of what they're about or something. I
Yeah,
mean,
or their life's work or something.
that's that's
You
not
got a
very
minute.
easy.
So, I'll just give you a little. I've been thinking about these things for quite some time. In 2001, I co-founded an organization called the People's Network, which was a web-based community media channel, online channel, and I learned a lot. It lasted for about a year, and it set me on the track of, what kind of media do we need to have where people can have agency over their voice, and what are the things that would be useful. And so a few years ago, what I landed on as far as the questions was, what do you got? What do you need? What do you think? What do we do? And question. So we need to open up the debate. We need to be able to kind of because I really love what you said actually about it's part process and part, like, you can't be an authoritarian about these kinds of processes. You just can't. It's going to drive people away, and it's not actually useful.
Right.
So the framing that I was considering was first of all having the participants frame the questions themselves. And then the other four questions are identifying things so that we can become more real to each other. So
Mm-hmm.
I can share what I have. So that's the what do you got kind of idea. So what I have to offer is I have, a lot of critical thinking on media democracy, citizen engagement, the economy, and you know the future, and where we can go and what's possible. What I need are people to work with. I need people who are amazing, like yourself and the other Next Edgers, and I mean, there's millions of people all over the planet right now that are working on amazing stuff. I need to work with people and help us to experiment in that articulation. That's my mission, is to experiment in the articulation of what our dreams and visions are collectively. And so that's what I need. And of course, just general support to be able to do that. And then what do we think? That's like a whole range of, could be anything. What are we talking about? What I want to get to is, what is it that we are talking about? Because every time you get to that next edge, there's another edge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the what do we do? I mean, that's the stuff that is around actually coming to agreements, and is a little farther along than I think the inception of an idea like this. But certainly there's some doing in it, as in, let's start, right?
I like that a lot, and I should tell you how I connect with it, which also speaks to how this call for videos for the next Edge came about. I sort of answered a call for somebody who suggested, hey, we need some kind of story. We need to get people's stories somehow. Uh, and somebody suggested that I would lead that part, and I wasn't quite sure. Well, Suresh suggested that. So and I wasn't quite sure what was meant, but another part of the discussion was Liz, who was working on the website for the festival, was working on extended profiles for it, and she was thinking about some kind of video content and so forth. But what I did connect with the most was really what the kind of thing you just mentioned. Like, one thing I often come back to is sort of trying to get the clarity of what are we, what do we do, like bringing it down to some very simple stuff of like like you said, what have you got? What's your what can you offer? What can you do? What's your thing? What's your service? Which is really how can we plug in together? What do
Yes.
you need to move on, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And even though we are all apparently smart people, we have a terrible time being clear on that kind of thing. And I would love if each of us could just say a couple of things like that really clearly. It doesn't have to be our whole being we cover in it, but if at least you can say a couple of things of this is, I got this, I need that, then we can start plugging some things together. So I see sort of a very basic networking thing that to do that we need to have something that's clear. There has to be some kind of connectors that we can connect some other things to. So if it's all sort of fuzzy, I'm open to anything and thinking about many fuzzy interconnecting things, that's great, but that doesn't, it's not a very solid ground to build networking on. It's perfectly fine that all of us are a little bit mysterious and fuzzy. I certainly am too, but I would like if we could persuade or invite people to have clarity on their thing, at least on some or few areas that can be sort of broadcast to the network, like
Yes.
and that's a part of, I'm connecting with that. A video format is one way maybe of making that more clear, that we can sort of get the vibe of somebody and we can somehow help them say what their thing is. Yes, that's hard, but we can maybe find a way where we can help or trick people into stating what they've got and what they need and what their process is or their vibe or their thinking is about that. That could allow us to connect better together, network. It could allow us better to prepare for meeting in person. We have a better idea of what we can do and so forth. So my main motivation in it is to find more ways of making that clarity available, or most of us need help in
It needs
being
to be
clear.
visible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of us maybe don't quite know what it is, or we have trouble. It takes us an hour to explain what we're about, where it really needs to take a minute or two, so that I mean, it might take an hour explanation to give it more depth to it, but we should really be able to do some kind of elevator pitch of what we've got and what we need.
Yes.
I mean, we all have somewhat limited time to, and so the first step is sort of to find the people that you click with enough that you should go further with it, and you don't have hours to sort of try to for them to get to the point of what they need to do. We might need to do that in order to get to the right point, but the outcome should be that each of us can be a little more clear, so that we can stand up and say, this is me here, this is my part, or this is what I want to do, without being too fussy about it. So that's what I hope here. So that sort of fits in very much with what you said.
Great. Well, I would love to keep this short, because I'd love to, well, first of all, would you be open to posting this on to as a comment on the conversation we had?
Yes, certainly.
Great.
Meaning what I just said, or what we've talked about here?
This whole piece.
Yeah, certainly. Because it's essential for me. I mean, it's not just that it's important to be on video or something. I mean, for me, it's to to develop this clarity of getting to where we can say what we have and what we need and move on with the job.
So I've done a little bit of what do I got and what do I need. Do you want to just do a quick what do you have and what do you need just to play in that space?
Yes, I'd love to play in that space. Even though it's one of my pet things to talk about, I'm not good at it. But of course I will. What I have is a lot of sensibilities and instincts in the area of networking things together, social networks. Part of where I come from, in 1995, I started the New Civilization Network, which is in some ways a forerunner to the Next Edge. It was an early social network for visionary futurists and dreamers, and so forth.
Thank you.
And I succeeded very well in gathering quite a large amount of very inspiring people in the late 90s, and made a lot of experiences in that. And it looked very promising, but ultimately it didn't sort of take off. I was a little naive about it, about what it would take. I sort of hoped that just by getting the right people together, self-organization would sort of happen and they would just sort of work it out. So I essentially just put out an invitation to, hey, just show up here. We're going to build a new civilization. Anybody's project is fine. Whatever you want to do, go and do it. We'll invite other people who resonate with that to go and join you. Other people who have other ideas, they go and do that. And we try to we network those together. So the wide open sort of anarchy of a network of doing good things for the world. And a lot of people thought that was great, but I had absolutely no structure to how that was supposed to work. Originally, it was just a mailing list, a discussion group. Then I programmed structure around it. I essentially programmed a whole social network, which had bulletin boards, blogs, forums, chat rooms, and some of these things we're talking about here. I had a place where you could make sort of the specs for what's your project, what are you trying to do, what are you looking for, what kind of people can join the project, what's the goal of it, what are the sort of the terms of it. I tried to make various ways of making clear between people and between projects what are you doing, what do you need, and trying to connect them up with other people.
Yeah.
And lots of that was successful in a certain way. Some of it made it fall apart in a certain sense. Some of the people started sort of getting into fights and rivalries with each other that I didn't know at first how to manage very well. I noticed with some satisfaction that the people in Next Edge, something has matured in the meantime. But at that time back then, I was a little surprised, but I could get some very smart visionary people together who had fantastic ideas, but they didn't necessarily get along, and they had no clue how to get along, or that there was even any point in getting along. People like Jacques Fresco, who's the guy who, do you know the Venus Project? He's a guru for the Zeitgeist Project. Yeah. He's like 98 or something, and he's this architect who's made these fantastic futuristic cities. He has whole plans for how to organize society, and lots of people find him very inspiring. And he is, but it's a very sort of one-way kind of thing. I've had long conversations with him, but they're like one way. He just explains how it is, and then he doesn't hear any feedback.
Well, I just want to, can I just check, I know that this is your time to share, but I just want to put in there that is like this human technology of how we figure out how to interact with each other. Like how beautiful. 98-year-old man has a huge gift to the world, and what our job is to integrate it but he maybe doesn't have the capacity at this time to be able to do that, but we need to show each other how to take in each other's information.
Yeah. So, and that's maybe more tricky than I optimistically thought. Like my idea of it is, it's great that everybody's coming from different angles. They do it different ways, and of course it's okay that there's room for everybody, sort of an open space kind of thing. That you go and do that over there, fantastic, and you other people go and do their thing over there, fine. But I didn't know how to manage when they then sort of insisted on getting into a fight on the sort of main square of the place. Anyway, so I made a. I have lots of stories about that. I can get really long-winded about it, but essentially, I had a certain amount of experience in trying to create things like that and finding certain things that work, and aiming really high on sort of trying to find the structure of it or the tools of a network that allows the great portion of humanity to network in a positive manner, where actually it becomes something generative and something bottoms up, self-organizing in some fashion, where you really can pick what you want to work on and go and do it, and have some likelihood of succeeding, where we don't need to elect a sort of a government for the whole thing, but you can just pick your thing and work on it.
Yeah.
So that's still my thing, to try to find tools to create a network of some kind. There could be different kinds of tools. I'm a programmer, so I'm in part thinking about software tools, but it's also sort of protocols and approaches for how to deal with each other. So I'm looking for how all of these lovely connections between people can be something scalable, where it doesn't sort of get lost in noise the moment there are too many people. Like you and I can have a lovely conversation, but if we put the 500 people together, then it's a bit of a mess. So I would like it to scale, where this sort of adds up to a network where it's actually where somehow it works, even though we move into many people.
So what do you need?
So what I need is, like, personally, what I need is sort of the space to be able to work on that without too many distractions of it. Like, I make my living as a computer programmer. I don't really spend that much of my time actively creating the things I would really like to do. I would love to spend all of my time building tools for the next edge or for a new civilization or whatever we call it. And I have done that in the past. I haven't done that quite recently. Well, I have in certain ways. I was hired for 4 or 5 months by a company that was building exactly that, but ended up not happening. Jim Rutt, who is in the next edge also, financed a nonprofit operation that was supposed to build LightNet, which essentially is the same thing I'm talking about, a piece of software for connecting people together. Eventually, he changed his mind and pulled the funding from the thing, but I have been part of things like that recently. What I need is to personally become more able to focus more seriously on the things I truly care about, instead of working on other people's software projects, kind of thing.
Yep.
That's quite down to earth. So it's more sort of an organizational kind of thing. So I've been a little bit sort of idling for many years and not really, I mean, I still talk with many people about these kinds of things, but I'm a little bit not doing as much about it as I like to.
So how about this, Flemming? I will agree to do something for you, and you agree to do something for me. How about that?
Okay, let's say that.
So I will agree to. Okay, so we both have agreed to have a conversation for the record, and I would agree to have it posted online, and I would love to have a follow-up conversation with you where we explore a little bit more in depth in segments, perhaps in segments, and
Hmm.
perhaps with other people some of these ideas.
Hmm. Yes, I am all for it.
Wicked. That's fantastic. I'm very schedulable. And I'd love to. Here's the process that I was thinking as far as the group conversations, and I'd really love to, like maybe after, like let's keep in mind the timing thing because people will only watch so long. I mean, these are next edgers, but let's try and keep this concise. But I'd like to post this whole piece, so um, let's wrap soon. But I would love to have one-on-one conversations with each person, and then do a group hangout. Like choose a small group of people, maybe 5 to 7, that want to have, or 4, that want to have a deeper conversation. Have a conversation with each of the participants with questions, so that, uh, and then have the conversation, and then have conversations with each person afterwards as well to hear and see where we've learned and grown. Um, anyway, I guess I'm just throwing that out there as another process that, as far as engaging people in ways that can track our ideation, because I think that's really important, because we're developing shared ideas together, and we
Hmm.
need to both see how that happens, have a record for reflection as far as what that looks like and feels like, so that we can better innovate moving forward.
Okay, cool. So we're talking about, well, more conversations, a follow-up to what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Probably more one-to-one conversations, making them public, group conversations. And I'm hoping for that to somehow also lead to being able to fit in with my short video project kind of thing, that some of what can come out of that could be snippets of some of these conversations.
Yeah.
Like in
And,
a certain
and
sense, I'm hoping for people to either be able to or be somehow tricked. No, that's the wrong word, but somehow be be caught saying what they're about. Like somehow we're not able to do it if we sort of prepare and we try to rehearse it and so forth. But in a conversation, it might come out. We might just authentically say what actually we really wanted to say, and that might be a minute or two that really is lovely as part of one's profile or presentation. It can be sharpened after that, but we might use some of this material for presenting ourselves to each other.
And I am happy to do any of that one-on-one with people. Like you mentioned in your original post that you'd be happy to do interviews. I'm like jumping up and down over here, super stoked to do any interviews with any person, to help them to be able to present their ideas well. So I'm happy to do that.
Wonderful. So, and I think it works best that when there are several people doing it, it's not just sort of an official interview from some
No.
authority. It's more conversations.
Yes.
We should probably maybe shouldn't even call them interviews, but let's have
Mhm.
some conversations.
Yes.
And those conversations, in one way or another, are part of understanding each other better, in the process discovering how we can sharpen our presentation and then clarity with each other. And one way or another, it's a good thing. So cool. So let's do more of that.
Wicked. Are you comfortable? Would you mind being the person that posts this to the Next Edge on the comment feed?
Sure. Yeah. No problem. So just where does it end up? It ends up
I'll,
on.
I'll send you the link. I'll
Yeah.
just.
Sure.
Great.
No problem. So because also we need sort of some examples of conversations, and really I'm perfectly fine with most conversations being totally public.
Yeah.
Um, so it's out in the open. Okay, cool.
Flemming, thank you so much for. It's been just such a pleasure to meet you and to play in the space.
Thank you, Tammy. So we'll see each other again. So bye for now.
All right. Bye bye. Thank you.